If you ask someone to tell you what a variable is and they say, "Oh, it's anything that varies," flick them. Okay, fine, variables are just anything that varies, but I don't think that explanation is terribly illustrative. Part of the difficulty of defining variables is their ubiquity. They are everywhere and everything. So, let's do this with examples. The weather is an abstract construct, but it is made up of many very, very concrete variables. The temperature, barometric pressure, average wind speed, gust speed, cloud cover, precipitation type, and amount. In everyday speech, we tend to talk in abstract ideas. It's one of the great triumphs of the human mind that we're able to do this. But thinking abstractly gets in the way here. It's really a core challenge to students learning to do effective research because abstract ideas don't work as well in science. In science, we have to define, operationalize, quantify, and measure our variables. Now, a common conversation I have with a student goes something like this. What variables are you considering for this study? Well, I think that the heavy workload really bothers students and makes their lives difficult. You may be right, but I'm not sure what you mean with these abstract ideas like bothers or having a difficult life. This is like having an exhausting conversation with an insufferable father. I know. I'm sorry to all of my students watching, really. But there is a point to this exercise. We can't measure abstract ideas. Well, actually, that's not precisely true. We just have to break it into its constituent parts. What does it mean to be bothered? If you had to break that down, what are the things that happen to people who are bothered? Talk to me in terms of specific things, not abstract ideas, that change when a person becomes bothered. If you're finding this concept difficult, pause the video here and try to come up with some answers. Well, they may become more frustrated, stressed, depressed. They may start to doubt themselves. Excellent. Those are the variables. Frustration varies. Think of it like this. Frustration would probably increase when facing particularly challenging events and decrease when experiencing really relaxing events. I'm making this video right now and I'm having a grand old time, so my frustration level has dropped to 0. But I'm a little stressed because I want to complete this video and release it as soon as possible so that my students can benefit from it. So variables do vary, but they don't ever just go away. Just because I'm not frustrated right now doesn't mean that the frustration variable ceases to exist. It just means that my value on that variable is presently very low. If you just ate a meal, your hunger value drops to 0, yet the fact that hunger is a factor relevant to your life remains. It's still a variable. It still varies. It just varied to a value that makes you less aware of its relevance. Variables also have names. When a person asks you for a variable, they want a name for it. A huge challenge in finding the relevant literature for a topic is discerning what researchers would call the variable you're thinking of. For instance, what do you call that sinking feeling that you forgot something at the restaurant but you don't know what it is? Is that abstract object misplacement worry? Does it even have a name? If you want to find the relevant literature, you need the relevant search terms. Thus, you need the name of that variable, and that means it's critical thinking time. Now, earlier I mentioned the idea that botheredness might involve someone doubting themselves, but that isn't really a variable name. If we're having a hard time giving a variable a name, we probably really haven't pinned down exactly what we mean yet, so we need to work to pin that down. This idea that one is doubting themselves is really a question of self-efficacy, right? Or self-confidence? Notice that these are much more specific. Variables also have definitions, and researchers fight over them. A common mistake I see in incipient research writers is that they use the dictionary for their definitions. We don't look to the dictionary to define things for us. Researchers have spent far more time trying to understand and pin down the specifics of these variables than Timmy the dictionary definitioner writer person. He's not an expert on this. The people who publish scholarly research on this topic spend every working day thinking about these ideas. Let's see what they've worked out collectively as definitions for these concepts. Identifying, naming, and defining our variables leads us to an unbelievably important step in the scientific process: operationalizing. More on that later. For now, do your best to break down abstract ideas into discrete concepts that you can imagine assigning a value to.